Hey guys, Palsteron here, and today let's talk about my Spark Mines Aristocrat for Phrecia League. After playing Kinetic Fusillade Ballistas and having an absolute blast, I had a decision to make which of the stackers to actually go with. I already played Accuracy Stacker, it's still extremely strong. Check out Jungron's video. We have the Strength Stackers of all varieties, which I've also played a ton in the past, but there is a new item that I've never tried out that just came out last league, which is Jiquani's Potential. This item absolutely slaps. The amount of flat damage it gives you will times 10 to times 20 your damage depending on how much intelligence you have with how damage effectiveness is set up currently in the game. Completely ridiculous, completely removes the need for you to scale any sort of plus to gem levels. The downside is it is a two-handed staff, so you have to work around that a little, but it also opens up a lot of potential with Phrecia. See, in Phrecia, we have an attribute stacking Ascendancy called Aristocrat. It has stuff like Private Tuition, which gives you 40% increased intelligence, but at the end, it also has Dreadful Attitude, which wants you to stack all attributes kind of. So the lowest attribute will be determined and that number will get multiplied by 1.6, and that is the amount of increased damage you get. For us, that is round about 1000% increased damage, which for Int-Stackers is a big deal because usually you don't get percentage damage until you get your Simplex Emmy, which is just very, very late. Leaning into all three attributes also gives us Curtain Call, which if you have 800 Dexterity and Intelligence, gives you 3 mines thrown at once. If you don't know what that means, that is straight up triple damage. This helmet is completely ridiculous, but usually it is kept in check by the fact that you have to get so many attributes. And even in normal league on an attribute stacker, if you get to 800 int, sure, but you're going to be around about a 300 dexterity unless you have perfect gear, which we're not going to be talking about in this video. You still have so much opportunity cost to actually reach that 800, and where is actually the payoff? But in this build, it all kind of makes sense because it also gives you increased damage from the Ascendancy. We also mitigate the downside of not being able to leech with Machina Mids, which works fine. It is definitely still one of the biggest downsides of mines, but it does its job, and with instant leech and, well, us being Spark, it works quite well. Let's get it out of the way. Why am I mines? Obviously, the helmet is the biggest reason. You have 800 dexterity, 800 intelligence. Usually that is a cost. In this build, it is quite free. I try to get exactly to 800 dexterity because there's no reason to go higher really. And your lowest attribute you want to have up as much as possible because of the Aristocrat Ascendancy right here, the Dreadful Attitude. Now let's demystify mines a little bit. What are mines? Mines are literally self-cast and in a lot of ways better. That is the end of it. If you have a buddy who still lives in 2017 and tells you mines are clunky, tell them to maybe log in once upon a time again, right? They probably have last logged in 2018 or whatever, which is fine. But yeah, if you're spewing that kind of nonsense, maybe you shouldn't be listening to that person anymore. Mines ever since Hexblast mines, by the way, as well. In the middle of Hexblast's reigns, there was a huge mine rework that made it even more comfortable. So the way it works is Detonate Mines is automated. So as you can see right here, you can barely like notice the difference. You can sometimes see a mine down, but as you can see right here, they basically explode immediately, which has its upsides and its downsides. The upside is that, well, it literally feels like self-cast. With some spells, it's actually better than self-cast because it also auto-targets, but it can be a downside with the aura effect. So if you don't know, High Impact Mine is the support you have to put on your Spark of the Nova to support it and make it into a mine. And each mine supported applies chance to deal double damage to hits against enemies near it up to a maximum of 100%, which can be scaled with aura effect. Now, this is realistically not up 100% of the time. As you can see right here, I don't just have 15 mines up, and that is because of the regular automation. So that is a little bit different in terms of how these kind of builds used to function, but that's all you need to know. You are mines, but you have a downside, right? First up, you have 50% less damage from the support gem. You have to use the support gem, then you get a little bit back with the double damage. Now, the other thing is you set your cast time to 0.25. So you might be thinking, oh, 50% less damage, that's pretty bad. Well, if you look at Spark of the Nova, it has 0.75 cast time, and with the High Impact Mine, you set it to 0.25, which is like triple damage, right? Triple the amount of cast time. So you get that. Now, think about triple the amount of cast time, triple that again, so that's times 9 with Curtain Call, which is why, well, you're going to see a tons of sparks on the screen. So that is the biggest upside of mines, and that's why you see spells that aren't as fast on mines that hit hard. Curtain Call, pretty obvious, you triple your damage. It is pretty rough because you do lose a lot of energy shield on your helmet, but that is something you have to live with. The mine version can never be as tanky as the normal version because of that. Better support gems and passive tree. This one's pretty straightforward. Spells do not have the best support gems at all. They often have to use, I don't know, multiple crit supports, and then also stuff like Arcane Surge, which, well, you have to work for a little bit on some of these life-spending builds because of Jiquanis, but the way it works is you have stuff like Trap and Mine Damage, which is incredible, and you have Charged Mines. Now, Charged Mines gives you both Frenzy and power charges, and it also gives you trap throwing speed, which is the equivalent of cast speed. On the passive tree, you're getting clusters like Successive Detonations, which gives you 100% crit chance and 40 crit multi, enough said. And then you have stuff like Devastating Devices and just really efficient nodes, really good masteries with increased damage taken and less damage taken per mine near it. You are also Reflect immune, so that's one less thing you have to solve for. And when it comes to Reflect, that is one that will come up a lot in the map mods, more on the map mods later. Downsides is you obviously lose the support here. You have the less damage, but as I already said, you also have triple the amount of base cast time. -2 sockets, so that means automation and detonate mines, right? Which you have right here. Automation, link to detonate mines. Obviously, you also have to activate it, and then everything just happens automatically. The other downsides is, yeah, so you're going to sacrifice your gloves and your helmet. Some people opt to not go for Machina Mids. I personally really like it with instant leech, but that is up to you. I personally would not recommend it because you would have to go for stuff like energy shield recharge and whatnot, which is not a good idea on this build. I'll show you why later. So that is a big downside. You lose quite a bit of energy shield. A normal Sparker on this kind of gear level would have around about 12k ES. Do note that I'm still missing quite a bit of upgrades. Let's just put it that way. Now, the last thing is it's harder to get mine throwing speed. So even though you do start out a lot higher, you can grab a ton of cast speed on top of everything else in a normal setup, while you can't really here. You're gonna get it on jewels, a little bit from the passive tree, and that's about it. I almost forgot the last upside of mines, which is the cost. Look at this cost, 39 life or mana or whatever. If you think about a caster, your spark at this stage is probably going to cost 100 plus. So that is another big deal, and it's because of the 50% reservation and cost multiplier of high impact mine. Now let's talk about Jiquani's potential, our main weapon and main scaler in terms of damage for this build. If you look at Spark right here, tooltip, I know it's not reliable, but 631k goes down to 31k. Now, what getting flat damage means is you don't really want to scale plus to added levels. So that's one thing, because plus to added levels does the same thing, but a lot worse. But you will notice on the bottom right here, blood magic. So that is something you have to work around. The first thing is you can't go CI, because even if you converted the cost to something like energy shield cost, you would still have the reservation of your mines. So you can see it right here. Your mines do reserve life. So that is the first thing that cannot be converted. So you need to work around that. So we actually do need to get chaos resistance, which is not an issue because we're in the Scion area. If you're looking at this right here, my only source of chaos res, which I'm capped at right now, 76%, you can see all my resistance comes from this one Light of Meaning. Then next up, it needs to use Coruscating Elixir, which is probably the biggest downside. What this means is Coruscating Elixir makes it so chaos damage cannot bypass energy shield. So otherwise chaos damage would go through and would immediately kill us because we are on low life. Now you can do it with hybrid versions, like for example Captain Lance has done in the past. But I would say Coruscating Elixir is by far the best solution. And what you need to do is when you get into a map, you press it once and it's going to be always up. I prefer reused at the ends of this flask effect because even if you're not perfectly set up and sometimes some stuff happens, it will always be up. I would highly recommend this. Do not use whenever full. That would be my recommendation. The only thing you have to remember is pressing it once at the start of the map. That is it. Now, we use the Trader, which you guys might know, Balbala, right? The usual, to get passive flash charges back, and that is how you don't even have to kill anything. You will still always have Coruscating Elixir up. And for being able to use the Trader, you can also see that we're sacrificing 2 flask slots. So that is quite a big sacrifice. The upside is that we can do stuff like Bismuth, which can cap our resistances actually because it's always up, and Quicksilver Flask, which is always up. So it kind of gives us like a middle thing of we have 3 flasks which are always up. It's not like a Mage Blood, but it opens us up for Headhunter as well. Now the upsides though is that your low life, which gives you Pain Attunement, which is a very big more multiplier, 30% more spell damage when on low life. You just have to be on at least 50% life or less, and then you're considered low life. You also get +1 aura because we're now able to use Eternal Blessing, which usually you can't use other auras with, right? So we put Wrath here. But if it's reserved on life, it counts. You can have as many auras on life as you want while still having Eternal Blessing. And also, life instead of mana cost can be quite a big deal. So what happens right here is that we're using Eternal Youth. You might be asking, otherwise, how would we support the life cost? Because we could go for a region, but then we could not do no region maps, which is a big no-no. I definitely want to be able to do no region maps. So what we do is Eternal Youth, 50% life regeneration rate and 50% less total recovery, but your energy shield recharge instead applies to life. And since you're never hit on life, it just perfectly always goes up. It does not matter. Even if enemies hit you on your energy shield, you will never stop with your recovery. Now, this does work with Ghost Reaver, even though it says it turns off your recharge energy shield. The conversion puts in first, so you can still use Ghost Reaver with the Leech for Machina Mid while still using Eternal Youth for your recovery on your life cost. But let's talk attributes right now and what the attributes actually get you. So I'm currently on 1.8k int, 800 dex, and like 600-ish strength. And I'm still on my Cogwork ring. I don't have a Simplex amulet. I put almost all my money into idols, so that is what it is. Intelligence is your biggest scaler. You want as much as possible. It gives you lightning damage to spells from Jiquanis, but also innately it gives you energy shield from just being intelligence, which is obviously very, very huge. It also gives you increased evasion rating. The thing we're doing right here is the mastery that is always taken, increased evasion rating per 5 intelligence, but dexterity provides no bonus, which is no downside because we already have Mage Bane, which does the same thing. Which then means that dexterity gives you spell suppression and strength gives you projectile speed from these grafts. And this graft implicit with projectile speed per strength for Spark is actually a game changer because getting projectile speed on this build is almost impossible, right? Like we're getting a ton from these projectile speed tattoos, which we have to sacrifice our dexterity for, but we're a big, dumb staff, so there's not really anything to be done here. We have no wands. We can't really get it from gear because they made it so that amulets cannot roll the projectile speed mod anymore. It is now on gloves, so we would have to sacrifice our Machina Mids if we really wanted to. It is what it is. That is usually what people do on their gloves. They have to sacrifice it, but yeah, we're not going for that. So pretty big deal to get that back with the graft. Now, the last thing is increased damage equal to the lowest attribute times 1.6. So you get 8% increased damage per 5 of your lowest attribute, which is basically take your lowest attribute and times 1.6 it. In this case, we have 624, which comes out to almost 1,000% increased damage. And I'm not really trying. Like, sure, I have all attributes, but I would want that anyways. So there's not really any payoff for getting this increased damage. Talking about Ascendancy, we have Aristocrat, and do note that all of these small points come with +1 passive skills and also +5 from the Inherited Fortune, which is really nice for attribute stackers that want to go around the tree and then go for split personalities, which in our case, we have the Dex and Int ones. So yeah. Passive skill points, the perfect choice for this Ascendancy. Then there's 3 different nodes here. We're taking the increased intelligence right here and also cannot be shocked, which is a nice little boon on top. And then dreadful attitude, which is our main increased damage scaler. Now, as a last point, you can go for one of these, but what I opted to do since I wanted to do tier 17s and 16.5s harder content is I went for Precursor's release. You will see that my helmet and my boots do not have any sockets, and that is why. From not having anything on my boots, I get action speed cannot be modified, which is extremely premium and shuts off quite a few different stats, just map stats in general in endgame. It also makes me freeze immune and chill immune-ish. and it gives me cannot be stunned if I don't have any sockets on my helmet, which is very useful for an energy shield build. You might be asking, well, where is your crit immunity from? Well, that is from Soul of Solaris. I don't like relying on Soul of Solaris when it comes to bossing, but for mapping, it is perfectly fine and a valid way to stop crits. As for gear, on the Jiquanis, you want as high spell lightning damage per 10 int as possible. You can also see that I have the Heist enchant on top of that to increase it. The Curtain Call, you can have plus to maximum power charges, you can have Malediction, other stuff. Reservation efficiency doesn't really work because then you would have to put sockets in your helmet, which means you would not be stun immune. You can do that if you want to get it somewhere else, but I would highly recommend against it. Body armor, you want as much int as possible, you want the all attributes, and then just evasion rating, energy shield. There is definitely an angle where you go for grace on one of your auras, and then you can go for a full energy shield body armor. I have not been doing that because of certain budget reasons, because the reservation would get harsher, but you can try that out for yourself if you want to. For my one ring, I do have a cogwork ring right now, but you would definitely want a helical ring. I'll show you an example a little bit later at the end of the video. Then we have Kalandra's Touch, just to mirror it. For my amulet, I have the budget version, which is Astra Mentis. With how much percentage we are getting from the private tuition right here, I just kind of felt like it. I put all my money into my idols, so it is what it is. Simplex Amulet would be the best one. I'll also show you which one at the end of the video. Machina Mitts, if you can get it, +1 maximum frenzy charge is incredible. Any sort of curse is incredible, whether it be LE weak or enfeeble. I just got both of these because nobody played these. So there it is. Headhunter is incredible on this build. It fixes basically all your defense. If you have content that does not go for any rares or very little rares, I would highly recommend to go for a non-Jiquani version, non-coruscating elixir, because then you really want to make the most out of Mage Blood. But there are versions out there in Pure Ninja, so you can look at that. For me, Headhunter is an absolute game saver. For boots, you would really want an Abyssal socket here. It does work with the Owl Ascendancy. It does not count as a socketed gem because it's a jewel, so you would want that. Otherwise, I just go int. I actually don't have enough dexterity right now because of my absence of helicals and simplexes to straight up be suppress capped from the Mage Bane. So that means that I have to still sub it in with a suffix right here, which is very inefficient. There you go. It has good, so the action speed and implicit is important, and the cooldown recovery rate of travel skills for the smoke mine, which we basically press. Now do note that there is a little bit of a downside here where since you are using Curtain Call, you will throw 3 mines at once, which takes all your cooldowns, but I have been working around that quite a bit on the tree. But as you can see right here, with my enhanced setup, this gives me round about 70% movement speed, so it is quite nice. For flasks, coruscating elixir with as high quality as you possibly can get. You need reused at the end of this flask effect, so if you're corrupting them for yourself, put that on first and then corrupt. As far as I know, you can't do it after, if I remember correctly. So yeah, there's that. After that, we have Experimenter's Bismuth Flask. So you just want increased duration as much as possible, additional LE res during flask effect. Having a Bismuth Flask up is really, really easy. Now, your Quicksilver Flask, if you're never killing anything, is not up 100% of the time, but there's nothing combat related on this flask. It's literally just movement speed, so you don't really need the movement speed anyways whenever that happens. But yeah, so Coruscating Elixir 100% uptime, Bismuth Flask 100% uptime, Quicksilver Flask like 70% out of combat or so, 60% out of combat, and then obviously 100% in combat. My Grafts are pretty mediocre, so I have the 1% projectile speed per 20 strength, which is the most important modifier here. And then if you can get the right skills, that is a big thing on top. Wreathed in Light is basically just this thing, these radiant ground. So you put this down, and while you stand on radiant ground, you will actually be lucky. So that is like 33% more damage. It also gives a little bit of extra flat, which does not matter for us because we have so much from the Jiquanis. But yeah, it is just 33% more damage on single target. Very, very strong. And then the other stats are kind of negligible. If you can get percentage int, that is obviously GG. If you can get lightning damage, spell damage, anything like that, very good. As a second one, I actually went for the Zoff Graft. It gives you a little bit of a buffer. It gives you like 5,000 extra HP, which sounds bad on an energy shield build because that's already kind of what you're doing. But I didn't really know what else to do because a lot of the other stuff was more like fake. You could go for endurance charges if you really wanted to. But yeah, this is up to you. You probably won't be able to be picky anyways because Phrecia isn't a huge league. So whatever you can get with projectile speed per 20 strength honestly goes. As for jewels, the most important combo right here is to cap your Chaos Res with the Light of Meaning down here. You can see Light of Meaning down here gets me from -60 to 0 res, but then you put in Unnatural Instinct, which allocates all these small points as well, and we're capped. That is all the Chaos Res you will see on this character, and that's that. The Unnatural Instinct also hits a little bit of skill effect duration, which is nice, right? A little bit of AoE, which can be useful. The cast speed doesn't really do anything, but yeah, that's about that. So this 2 jewel combo is very important. Watcher's Eye, I went for Wrath and Zealotry Pen, simply because I want to be ready for the map effect that gives enemies extra resistances, which they're going to be capped, so Pen is extremely valuable. On paper, there are some other stats that are better, but that is, I just wanted to basically be ready for the worst case scenario. Then we have a ton of these jewels, which all have mind throwing speed. These 3 I made myself with Reforge Crit on Harvest right here. So you go Reforge Crit and you just Reforge over and over and over. The important thing is that you want a Mind Throwing Speed Fracture, and then on top of that you want to hit the multi with lightning skills, which is the only second prefix that's really good. And then suffixes, you can be very wide ranging. You can fix your resistances, you can get extra attributes, you can even get reduced effect of curses, or you can just go all out multi, which is what I definitely would recommend to get for as much as possible. Now for your Brutal Restraint, you want to get as much dexterity as possible, and it needs to be Balbala. Balbala gives you the Traitor Keystone right here, which is 4 charges per empty flask slot every 5 seconds. There you go. My notes have 5% dexterity, 5% dexterity, 5% chance to blind enemies on hit, which is okay. And then I think I have, yeah, some Aura Effect. There it is. Those are kind of the best mods. Aura Effect, Dex, Flat Dex is also very strong. Then Split Personalities, I'm going for Dexterity Int. These do change depending on how good your gear is. You don't need more than 800 Dexterity because, for example, if I got another 50 attributes, I would definitely put it in Strength because it is currently my lowest attribute, which means that I would get increased damage from Dreadful Attitude. But if I got extra 50 Dexterity in this position, nothing would change. It doesn't really give me anything. It gives me a little bit of Spell Suppression, sure, but the most important thing is that the bottom 2 attributes are as equal as possible. Looking at the rest of the keystones here, we have Mage Bane, which gives us a ton of our spell suppression. We have Eternal Youth, which I talked about in the Jiquani section, gives us our recovery for the life cost. We have Iron Will, which is a decent amount of increased damage. It is like 7% more damage or so for a point, so we take it. We have Pain Attunement, which gives us more damage because we're on low life. And then we have Ghost Reaver, which gives us our Leech. It converts the Life Leech from Machina Midst to Energy Shield Leech. Now for Cluster Jewels, mine are unfortunately not all that great. You want to first fracture the 35% increased effect, and then you want to go for Fundamental Fossils and roll into 4 all attributes and 8 Int. Do note that the Int can be divine from 6 up to 8. And the last mod is the hardest one to get. If you can get plus Energy Shield per small passive, that is incredible, especially on this build where we're kind of sacrificing our glove and helmet slot. I would probably be on like 13,000 Energy Shield right now if I had 2 of those mods on both of my large clusters. Just saying. Yeah, it is what it is. Other than that, we have the more projectile speed here. It is quite important. We do only have 3 pierces, which is sometimes something you will feel, but I don't think it's worth investing elsewhere. You can go for Pierce Boots. I do recommend trying that out if you have a lot more currency to spend. Anything else that is interesting here? Let's see. So I'm using a lot of tattoos here. Obviously, the proj speed tattoos are the most important ones. For Spark, you need a ton of projectile speed to make it feel good. I'm actually subbing in some resistances right here, which is not optimal, but it comes from, once again, my boots being very suboptimal. Other than that, obviously, the more skill effect duration with the increased skill effect duration to make your Spark even better. We do go through life here, which sounds nonsensical, but it does actually give us a little bit of extra reservation and a little bit of extra, yeah. It's basically better pathing. It seems like this is better pathing, but you can try it out for yourself. It really isn't if you have to get to Eternal Youth over there. Then we go through the Energy Shield right here. In terms of, yeah, so we're taking the applies increased damage, reduced damage, depending on how many mines you have. Definitely play around with the attributes. Once again, this completely depends. You need this life reservation efficiency to be able to fit in all your auras. And I think other than that, oh yeah, the instant leech right here. If you're wondering why I took it right here, the other leech cluster here doesn't really do anything for us because we already have the leech. And the extra total recovery is not that big because most of our leech comes from instant leech anyways. So I opted for this one, which is only 3 points in total, and it is within the brutal restraint, so we get a little bit of extra right there. I did go for Runegraft of the Warp, which makes it so buff expires slower and debuffs expire faster. This is really, really nice for our smoke mine, which gives us movement speed. But on top of that, it helps against the mod that makes it so every 10 seconds you can't deal damage for 3 seconds. So it's also very tier 17 proof. Let's talk about mods you cannot run. Buffs on you expire 100% faster. It means that your flasks are never up. Very bad for coruscating elixir. Players have less defenses. Up to you. I know people who even run this on energy shield builds. You're just going to be absurdly squishy. If you're good with your headhunter buffs, if you play it very safe until you get all your headhunter buffs, maybe. Depends on the strat you're running. If you're running 200% map effect, probably not a good idea. If you're running a more normal strat, probably doable. Players have less leech, really bad, because otherwise, well, we don't really have any recovery. Now, if you're playing a super easy strat that has almost no map effect, and you still get a little bit of that leech, that's pretty good. And you can technically also run it because you still have the instant leech. I just don't like running it. So that's literally it. This one is probably the most dubious one here to remove. Less recovery, never do this. It's so goddamn annoying. Monsters cannot be leeched from. There it is. Players gain reduced flash charges, bad. And there's another tier 16 mod here that has buffs expire faster. You don't have to worry about reflect or most of these other modifiers. You definitely don't have to worry about no regen. As for skills, I will quickly show you this in a tier 16 map. There should not be anything here that's going to screw me over, right? Yes, I'm going to quickly show you this. This is going to be with a ton of extra map effect. So yeah, the map's going to be quite juicy. I'm going to remove these because otherwise we're just going to stand there and open strong boxes. But yeah, let's jump in. So all you really need to do on this build, I do have a Frostblink in, which isn't really necessary. I just like it against certain hurdles. And then I just cast Spark, this one right here, and I cast Smoke Mine. So whenever I cast Smoke Mine, it will consume all 3 of my cooldown charges, which is unfortunate, but can't really do anything about that because of the Curtain Call. I did, however, make it so it's up all the time. So we have the Runegraft of the Warp right here, which makes it last longer. And you can also see that I have Enhance in right here. And yeah, just in general, we're a Spark, so we're already scaling duration. I did have more duration in, but I didn't really feel like it was necessary. You can also do that if you want to. So whenever I activate it, you can see that my movement speed will go up quite significantly for a while. It's a little bit finicky at the start. You have to press your flasks once at the start of the map. As you can see right there, it is important because we're using reused at the end, and then you just kind of go. On this map, you can see with all the map effect, it is not the easiest map. It's not the hardest map, but yeah, we're going to go through. I've basically been doing everything with this build. I will say that without the headhunter buffs, it is quite problematic, but when it comes to these harder content scenarios, I would say mostly it's about playstyle. So if you see, for example, the Tornado Shot Mines build that is absolutely blasting in tier 17s and 16.5s, it also has very low max hit and also relies on Headhunter, but at the end of the day, it just does not matter. You definitely want to pre-throw some to already have some sparks up whenever he's up. And yeah, then we're just going to keep casting. This is a very, very tanky map because it has extra energy shield. So we're just going to have to do that. We are also not applying the full shock, I'm pretty sure, but it is still enough damage to do everything here. And yeah, it is quite easy overall. The damage is, if you look at POV, it's a little bit finicky. The damage is definitely not as big as the maximum hit would let you believe, but it is quite big nonetheless, and mines do have a lot extra damage scaling through Curtain Call. As for the skills you've just seen, we have Spark of the Nova here with High Impact Mine, Charged Mines, Awakened Lightning Pin, Trap and Mine damage, and then also increased critical strikes. This one is a little bit flexible and open. If you have better crit than me, you can definitely go for increased crit damage. The reason I didn't want to go too crazy with crit and crit damage in general is because of the reduced crit mod, because otherwise all your damage will be gone whenever that mod is up, and you probably have to reroll it. So we don't have much else we can do right here, right? Because we need Eternal Blessing with Wrath. Then we also have Zealotry, and we have Discipline. Like I said, you can go for a full Energy Shield body armor and then go Grace instead of Discipline here. That is definitely a possible solution. You go Precision, and then you have this Frostblink, which I use once in a blue moon. This one is definitely replaceable. And in our 4-link, I have Smoke Mine with Enhance, with Detonate Mines and Automation. It is important to have that Enhance together with the Detonate Mines, because Detonate Mines gives you detonation speed from the quality, so the Enhance kind of double dips here. Let's talk further upgrades though, and the ones that I haven't been making yet. The first one that sticks out like a sore thumb is the Estremendous that I still have. The Simplex Amulet that would be best here for exactly this version. If you have stuff jumbled around, it can change, but it's actually a flat attribute Simplex Ami, a reflected one, not a shaper one. So it would have plus, this is with a multiplier of I think 1.8, plus 138 all attributes, plus 228 intelligence, and then you have a prefix, a throwaway prefix. So you want to hit double positive on the suffix and negative on the prefix. And then you would have, as you can see right here, quite a bit of extra stats. So your energy shield would shoot up by like 1,500. Your damage would be shooting up by 20% more. This is the highest priority if you want to upgrade this build from what I have. The second one is a helical ring. This will be the helical ring in question. Now, don't get me wrong, this one's actually even harder to craft than the Simplex Emmy, because this one would be with 3 upsides. You can also do this with 2 upsides. What you would do is you would first fracture strength and dexterity on, then you would craft with int essence, so spite, until you hit the all attributes. And you also need to be able to have 2 other modifiers that don't screw with you, and then you need to hit 3 positive. You can also go for 2 positive. It is still better than the Simplex, but I'm just going to show you like the GG right here. And as you can see, I mean, this ring is you're in a different stratosphere at this point in terms of your damage. It is completely ridiculous. It will, however, not give you all that much extra defense. So I would still definitely go for the Simplex Ami first. You will note though that my spell suppression is now way over, which also frees up another suffix on my boots. For an abyssal socket, for example, so that's a pretty big deal. It also frees up some of my tattoos for extra projectile speed. We then have cluster jewels, so all you would have to do is get these cluster jewels right here, but instead of the increased damage, you have +2 maximum energy shield. So the perfect one would be this. And if you put that in, +2 maximum energy shield, right now we have 10.8. And if we do that twice, so I don't know whether, yeah, this is the second one. If we do that twice, you can see I get another 2,000 energy shield or so. So that's a pretty big deal. Boots with abyssal socket, crafting those is a lot harder. And then at the end, you also have Emperor's Mastery. Emperor's Mastery currently is quite expensive. I even sold mine to be able to afford all my idols, because I did have one earlier. And as you can see right here, it is not a big upgrade over rare jewels whatsoever. It is even sometimes a damage downgrade. This one depends, but if you buy it, it's at the very, very end. But that's about all I got. Hope you guys enjoyed the league. Maybe you only played Kinetic Fusillade. Maybe you're going to give this build a shot as well. I hope you're having fun with idols. I know they're pretty divisive. Overall, I'm having a ton of fun over on twitch.tv/Palsteron. Currently on my 500 divine idol setup, which is quite ridiculous. Gambling for hope, or I should say hoping. Not even gambling for that double mirror. But yeah, this is another one of those builds that I wanted to try out before next league. I don't know if Jiquani is going to get nerfed or anything. You never know. But if not, it is definitely a interesting stacker in your toolbox, depending on what happens. I'm pretty sure Accuracy Stacker will get absolutely annihilated, and there will be a new search for that best build. But yeah, see you guys around. And since I still don't have a slogan, see you next time.